welcome back to Fresh Faces No Ideas. My name is David. If you're new to the channel or you like the channel, please like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Faces Ideas. Now for this video, we're going to continue with the joint address to Congress. This will be the third video. He's going to talk about how he's going to pay for his plan and just some of the other things that he wants to push forward. Now keep in mind, unless it's going to be done through reconciliation, none of these plans will pass unless they change the filibuster. This is on top of all the other bills that are passed through the House and then are sitting at the Senate. So that's something to keep in mind when it sounds like these things are really good, because some of them are. So let's take a look at this plan. Come on. There we go.
We can't be so busy competing with one another that we forget the competition that we have with the rest of the world to win the 21st century. Secretary Blinken can tell you I spent a lot of time with President Xi. Traveled over 17,000 miles with him. Spent, they tell me, over 24 hours in private discussions with him. When he called to congratulate him, we had a 2-hour discussion. He's deadly earnest about becoming the most significant, consequential nation in the world. He and others, autocrats, think that democracy can't compete in the 21st century with autocracies. It takes too long to get consensus. To win that competition for the future.
So I was watching another video and this point was made that was very interesting, is that the way they're going to phrase things is, instead of it being socialism versus capitalism, it's democracy versus autocracy. And if this is a successful framing of us against China and us against Russia, it will destroy Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is at heart an authoritarian. He's a stupid one and not very efficient, but that's what he is. So hopefully this is a decent framing that goes forward.
In my view, we also need to make a once-in-a-generation investment in our families and our children. That's why I've introduced the American Families Plan tonight, which addresses 4 of the biggest challenges facing American families and in turn America. First is access to good education. When this nation made 12 years of public education universal in the last century, it made us the best educated, best prepared nation in the world. It's, I believe, the overwhelming...
And then Bill Gates tried to play around with it, and it found out after a decade that everything he did made it worse.
...that propelled us to where we got in the 20th century. But the world's caught up or catching up. They're not waiting. I would say parenthetically, if we were sitting down, we set a bipartisan committee together and said, okay, we're going to decide what we do in terms of government providing for free education. I wonder whether we'd think, as we did in the 20th century, that 12 years is enough in the 21st century. I doubt it. 12 years is no...
The response to this is Joe Biden wants your kids to go to school so they can be indoctrinated in leftist values and because they hate conservatives. But look, we should have better access to schooling. School choice is not the answer. For those of you who don't understand what school choice is, because the Republicans keep harping on this, they're like, oh, why don't you get the right to choose? Because the way school choice works is you have the choice to go to a public school or a private school that is better funded and has better access to teaching your kids, but we're not going to give you the access to get to it. You can get a lottery system to get into it, but if it's not within your reach to actually access to it, whether you can drive to it or whatever, it's not a feasible thing for a parent to be able to take their kid there. School choice is a joke. It's just it's like up there with right to work. It's fun catchphrases that the Republicans use that mean nothing. Also, while he's talking about it, cancel student debt. You think you can cancel 10,000? Do that at least. Give it a start.
Longer enough today to compete with the rest of the world in the 21st century. That's why my American Families Plan guarantees 4 additional years of public education for every person in America, starting as early as we can. The great universities in this country have conducted studies over the last 10 years. It shows that adding 2 years of universal high-quality preschool for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old, no matter what background they come from. Puts them in the position to be able to compete all the way through 12 years.
Also, if you make it affordable and you make it accessible, that means that parents don't have to take as much time off to raise their kids then. They don't have to spend that time at home. Granted, yes, you should be there to help raise your kid. You should be part of your kid's life when they're younger, but this would allow them to stay and work longer, so it's also an economic boon.
It increases exponentially their prospect of graduating and going on beyond graduation. The research shows when a young child goes to school, not daycare, they're far more likely to graduate from high school and go to college or something after high school. When you add 2 years of free community college on top of that, you begin to change the dynamic. We can do that. And we'll increase Pell Grants and invest in historical black colleges and universities, tribal colleges, minority-serving institutions. The reason is they don't have the endowments, but their students are just as capable of learning about cybersecurity, just as capable of learning about metallurgy, all the things that are going on that provide those jobs of the future. Jill is a community college professor who teaches today as First Lady. She's long said,
look, I got nothing for this. More education is always better. It's a reason that anti-education and anti-intellectual is a cornerstone of the right.
she's long, if I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. Joe, any country that out-educates us is going to outcompete us. She'll be deeply involved in leading this effort. Thank you, Jill. Second,
This is now the second Democratic president in a row to be working with schools, because apparently Democrats want to destroy schools by first giving your kids healthy choices. Then they want to give them more access to their liberal Marxist communist manifestos so that they can hate America more.
we need. American Families Plan will provide access to quality, affordable child care. We guarantee what I'm proposing in legislation, we guarantee that low and middle income families will pay no more than 7% of their income for high quality care for children up to the age of 5. The most hard pressed working families won't have to spend a dime. Third, the American Families Plan will finally provide up to 12 weeks of paid leave and medical leave, family medical leave. We're one of the few industrial countries in the world.
No, I think we are the only industrialized country in the world that doesn't allow for paid medical leave and family leave.
You should have to choose between a job and a paycheck, or taking care of themselves and their loved ones, or parent or spouse or child. And fourth, the American Family Plan puts directly into the pockets of millions of Americans. In March, we expanded tax credit for every child in a family, up to $3,000 per child if they're under 6 years of age. Over 6 years of age. And $3,600 for children over 6 years of age. With 2 parents, 2 kids, that's $7,200 in the pockets to help take care of your family. And that will help more than 65 million children.
The response to this is, oh, he made more government spending. Yeah, but the counter of that is literally giving people money helps them. There's plenty of studies that show it. So yeah, good. I like this.
And help cut child care poverty in half. And we can afford it. So we did that in the last piece of legislation we passed. But let's extend that child care tax credit at least through the end of 2025. The American Rescue Plan lowered health care premiums for 9 million Americans who buy their coverage under the Affordable Care Act. I know that's really popular this side of the aisle.
Republicans don't like health care.
But let's make that provision permanent so their premiums don't go back up.
Because the other solution is COBRA, and COBRA is awful. But the better solution is Medicare for all. Because that saves money and covers more people, and then they don't have any premiums.
In addition to my family's plan, I'm going to work with Congress to address this year other critical priorities for American families. The Affordable Care Act has been a lifeline for millions of Americans, protecting people with pre-existing conditions, protecting women's health, and the pandemic has demonstrated how badly it's needed.
All those things Republicans consider socialism. They're against all of those things.
Let's lower deductibles for working families on the Affordable Care
Lower them to zero with Medicare for all.
and the Affordable Care Act. And let's lower prescription drug costs.
There's literally a law that says that you are not allowed to, for Medicare, when they wrote the Obamacare, that you are not allowed to negotiate with drug companies to pay their prices. Because look, this is insane. So some of these are like life-saving medicines, and if you don't have them, you die. So the corporations are like, okay, well, at what point will you stop taking these things before you die? And the answer is never. You will pay whatever the cost is. If you need insulin, it doesn't matter how expensive it is. The insulin is the same. If it costs $100 billion or one, you still need the insulin. It's still the same insulin. There's a reason it's like 8 times more expensive in America than it is in Canada. There's a reason the farmer bro is in jail.
We know how to do this. The last president had that as an objective. We all know how outrageously expensive drugs are in America. In fact, we pay the highest prescription drug prices of anywhere in the world, right here in America.
We pay the highest
Nearly
prescription
3
drug
times.
prices and healthcare prices. Our healthcare is twice as much as everyone else for worse results.
For the same drug, nearly 3 times what other countries pay. We have to change that, and we can. Let's do what we talked about for all the years I was down here in this body, in Congress. Let's give Medicare the power to save hundreds of billions of dollars by negotiating lower drug prescription prices. By the way, it won't just help people on Medicare. Lower prescription drug costs for everyone. And the money we save, which is billions of dollars, can go to strengthen the Affordable Care Act and expand Medicare coverage benefits without costing taxpayers an additional penny. It's within our power to do it. Let's do it now. We've talked about it long enough. Democrats and Republicans, let's get it done this year. This is all about a simple premise. Health care should be a right, not a privilege in America.
Then switch to a system that makes it a right and that is more efficient and less costly. I mean, he's not even talking about the public option anymore. That's the frustrating part. You ran on the public option, at least fight for the public option.
So, how do we pay for my jobs and family plan? I made it clear we can do it without increasing the deficits. Let's start with what I will not do. I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. But it's time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% of Americans to just begin to pay their fair share. Just their fair share. Sometimes I have arguments with my friends in the Democratic Party. I think you should be able to become a billionaire and a millionaire, but pay your fair share. A recent study shows that 55 of the nation's biggest corporations paid zero federal tax last year. Those
Bit longer than that.
55 corporations made in excess of $40 billion in profit. A lot of companies.
Look, raising taxes on them is fine, but you could make Amazon pay 98% of their income in tax. You could have that as a tax bracket. If you don't close the loopholes, it's irrelevant.
Also evade taxes through tax havens in Switzerland and Bermuda and the Cayman Islands. And they benefit from tax loopholes and deductions for offshoring jobs and shifting profits overseas. It's not right. We're going to reform corporate taxes so they pay their fair share and help pay for the public investments their businesses will benefit from as well.
Keep in mind, the number he's proposing, 28%, is lower than what it was prior to Donald Trump. So that's a compromise to begin with. And if Joe Manchin wants to make it even less, that's even more of a compromise. Because while they'll tell you that the sky is falling because they have to pay 28%, they used to pay 35%. They used to pay a whole lot more than that. And the sky didn't fall and corporations didn't leave America bankrupt.
We're going to reward work, not just wealth. We take the top tax bracket for the wealthiest 1% of Americans, those making over $400,000 or more, back up to where it was when George W. Bush was president, when he started, 39.6%. That's where it was when George W. was president. We're going to get rid of the loopholes, allow Americans to make more than $1 million a year and pay a lower tax rate on their capital gains than Americans who receive a paycheck.
So when you hear Fox News saying he's actually taxing you on capital gains, that's not where it works. If you make $1 million or more on capital gains, that's when you get taxed.
We're only going to affect 0.3% of all Americans by that action. 0.3%.
That's every American. He's coming after the little guy. 1% of all Americans is everybody. It's you in your house right now. Fucking idiot.
And the IRS is going to crack down on millionaires and billionaires who cheat on their taxes. It's estimated to be billions of dollars.
Somewhere between $700 and $1 trillion a year can be found by putting an $80 billion investment into the IRS.
Tanks are left, right, and center. I'm not looking to punish anybody, but I will not add a tax burden, additional tax burden to the middle class in this country. They're already paying enough. I believe what I propose is fair, fiscally responsible, and it raises revenue to pay for the plans I propose and will create millions of jobs that will grow the economy and enhance our financial standing in the country. When you hear someone say they don't want to raise taxes on the wealthiest 1% or corporate America, ask them whose taxes you want to raise. Instead, who's they're going to cut? Look, the big tax cut of 2017. Remember, it was supposed to pay for itself. That was how it was sold. And generate vast economic growth. Instead, it added $2 trillion to the deficit. It was a huge windfall for corporate America and those at the very top. Instead of using the tax savings to raise wages and invest in research and development,
which every corporation promised us they would do,
billions of dollars into the pockets of CEOs. In fact, the pay gap between CEOs and their workers is now among the largest in history. According to one study, CEOs make 320 times what the average worker in their corporation makes. It used to be below 100. The pandemic has only made things worse. 20 million Americans lost their job in the pandemic, working and middle-class Americans. At the same time, roughly 650 billionaires in America saw their net worth increase by more than $1 trillion in the same exact period. Let me say it again.
Can't tax them. That's socialism.
650 people increased their wealth by more than $1 trillion during this pandemic.
Trickle down is coming.
And they're now worth more than $4 trillion. My fellow Americans, trickle down economics has never worked. And it's time to grow the economy from the bottom and the middle out.
All right, we're going to stop this here. I'll do the last one. Look, I like a lot of what he says there. I hope he puts more pressure on Joe Manchin to actually push through these things. I hope he puts a lot more effort into actually fighting for these, because settling for less on these policies, at least on the tax policies, will hurt his overall agenda. And there's two lines in there that are fantastic. The trickle down never works, and the whose taxes do you want to raise and whose taxes are you going to cut? Because their big tax cut raised the middle class taxes every 2 years till 2027. They're not going to tell you that. They're just going to talk about all the windfalls for the corporations. But your taxes went up. Now, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.